Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Beyond the Barclay with me, Jez Davies. I'm joined by quite a few people today actually. It's probably the first time in a long time we've had more than just me, Morgan and a guest on. So we'll race around the room and just everyone could just introduce themselves. Perhaps if you go first, Morgan.
I'm Morgan. I'm co-host of Beyond the Barclay podcast with Jeremy Davies.
Thanks, Morgan. Cillian.
I'm Cillian O'Grady and I help out with the O'Grady Away Days and O'Grady Outlook podcast.
Eddie, as if you need any introduction.
Yeah, hi, I'm Adrian, former youth substitute for Norwich City and currently work in a school, help out with you guys whenever I can.
Brilliant. Last but not least, Ollie.
And I'm Oliver, help run the TikTok and obviously have my personal TikTok as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, gents. We all know why we're here. We're obviously here to discuss the news.
What news?
Where have you been today, Morgan?
Hello.
Obviously the news of obviously Johannes Hoff Thorup. He's been in situ for nearly a year and I still can't say his name. He's been removed from his position at Norwich City. So I mean, for me it was a shock timing of it. I can understand why they've done it. I just think they might have waited and perhaps he would have had the opportunity to have the summer to rebuild the squad a little bit, but I think they've had to make the decision now. I mean, is that first and foremost, is that a fair assessment that's open to anyone who's going to be brave enough to answer that?
Yeah, I think it's come at the right time. I think it's been brewing for a couple of weeks, but I didn't expect us to act that quick on it, to be honest. I think since the Burnley game, when that team selection came out, I think that tipped over a lot of fans. Mentioned that with disciplinary issues as well within the squad. Me and Cillian earlier were just talking about how disjointed the squad looks at the minute. I think looking back at it, it probably is the right decision. However, I would have liked to have seen what he would have built in the summer as well.
No, definitely. I mean, sort of just chucking across to you, Adi. I mean, from your experience, obviously as a professional footballer and your time, just playing in general, have you ever experienced anything like this with a manager leaving? And, how did you deal with that as a player?
Yeah, I did. A few managers left during my time playing. One of them sort of closed season, so left at the end of the season. New manager announced before we got back for pre-season. So, yeah, I kind of agree with what's being said. I'm surprised. The bit that surprised me is it's not something Norwich have done before. It acted that decisively. They tend to have perhaps given too long to managers. So I feel okay that they've done it now, in the sense that they haven't got to rush to make a decision. They haven't got to get somebody in place by the weekend or even by the end of the month. They've now got a lot of time to think about. And with these last two games to play, thankfully, and again, that would have probably factored into their thinking, like nothing to play for either end of the table. They can see what's happening around other clubs potentially come the end of the season. So they haven't got to, make decisions. I'm sure they've got a list of people that they're interested in, and we probably won't know that list until they're ready to sort of let people know. We can have our best guesses, and I've seen on social media already people kind of stating who they would like to come and see, but they've given themselves a lot of time, which means that they can not rush the decision. They can go through quite a detailed selection process, interviews, whatever it takes, because since Daniel Farker left, it's just been a nightmare in terms of, the ups and downs of sort of being a manager and stuff. I'm thinking the players can't wait for the season to end, get themselves away, manage who they appoint, who they don't appoint. It's kind of out of their control. They just have to be ready come pre-season now for whatever man is going to be at the helm. Fresh slate for everybody. That's what I was always told. So people that were maybe not in the Hoff's thinking, potentially it could be a breath of fresh air, or it's a boost into their arm in terms of, maybe they're wanted by the new man that comes in, but a chance for everyone to go away, have a break, come back pre-season and give absolutely everything for the new manager to state their claim for a place in his squad. So, as a fan, some of the performance we've witnessed in the last 3 or 4 weeks have been embarrassing. I like nothing that I've witnessed before. I tend not to get over emotional with football matches when it comes to Norwich. I just, take the highs, take the lows, whatever. But some of the most recent performances, but Burnley not having a recognised striker on the pitch, I've never known it. And so I think he kind of sealed his fate a little bit then. Like, if he'd come away with a win, we'd have been praising his, tactician, genius, this, that, the other, but it didn't. We got what we expected to get, and he comes away from it looking a little bit silly. I don't know what the players make of it. I don't think, they can get too involved in it. They just have to keep turning up. But like I say, I think they're kind of looking forward to a break now, because it's just been such an up and down season, for everybody.
No, definitely. I mean, Morgan, you've been uncharacteristically quiet, so maybe you can give your opinion now, please.
I mean, everything that AD said, I would probably echo, to be perfectly honest. I've sat there at Carrow Road, my head in my hands a few times, and heard myself go, get it up the pitch, which is, I've never done that before. And you come away from the game being like, did I really say that? Did I really say get it up the pitch out loud in front of people? Yeah, I think it's part of me is saddened by the fact that it's come to the end in the way it has, but equally I also understand that really there wasn't any choice. It like after Pompey, being there at Pompey and seeing what happened, I was like, there's no real way back. After that, it was really against, like, we just looked like. I mean, like, even now I'm describing it, I'm looking to the middle distance like a Vietnam veteran, but it was just.
Yeah. No, I know, and I mean, look, we talk quite a lot, and I think that's something we've been talking about, isn't it? And you could probably tell that my thoughts were going that way as well to what's happened today. And sort of finally, Cillian, before we have our first guest on, what's your immediate reaction to the news as it is, as a fan that goes week in, week out?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the timing of it, but like the last few games have been horrendous. I know Morgan hooked at the Pompey game, but all our last away games have been desperate. It's like from Bristol, Burnley, Plymouth, and now Millwall. So like there was fans singing "You're getting sacked" in the morning to a steward yesterday because he'd let a supporter onto the pitch. But I don't think they expected it. But timing's a bit surprising, but obviously it hasn't been working for the last while.
Just on that, I mean, something that I heard on Radio Norfolk that a fan got on the pitch at Millwall was and I gather it was a Norwich fan. Did you see anything unsavoury, shall we say, on that?
He was charging towards the subs who were warming up, and like one steward pulled him down.
Yeah.
I'd never seen the guy before, so I don't know who he was, but he was let through a gate by a steward, so there's an excuse upon a steward's inquiry about that amongst the rest of the stewards, but yeah, I don't know what his intentions were.
Hang on, let me just. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, can you see it? Can you see us?
Okay, all good.
Can you see everyone on the screen, mate?
Yeah, I can see everyone. I've got other clutter on my screen. I'm just getting rid of.
Okay.
Other windows open.
Don't get rid of any of us, please.
Good evening.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I didn't go to Millwall. I was seeing Graham Powell finish a 600-mile walk in memory of his wife. So
Right. Okay.
my wife went to Millwall on her own, and not best pleased.
No, and were you at the Portsmouth game as well?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I mean,
it became unsustainable, didn't it?
I think so. I mean, I was just about to ask you what's your initial thoughts on the news today. What were your initial thoughts when that news came through?
My initial thoughts are that I think that the protocols have been interesting because, we don't have there was a time, several times during Delia's reign when, she was always at the games and she heard the response of fans. And I think it was in the dog days of Alex Neil when the crowd were chanting Delia, sort it out. And they had a board meeting and there was some dispute about what they would do. And Delia said, it's my name they shout. It's my name they shout. And so we've got to do something. And there isn't anyone there now whose responsibility is. I mean, obviously, Napa and Zoe are responsible, but the decision ultimately rests with a bloke in America who's I think 5 hours behind, and it was interesting reading Paddy's piece on Pinkham today where he says that they did convene sort of a meeting, I guess, something like this with the Americans after the game and again on Tuesday morning and confirmed the decision. But that whole thing is interesting for me now because I don't know anything about the American owners as people, and we don't know how they'll react. So did Zoe and Napa say it's unsustainable now, or did the Americans say, well, that was dreadful, it's unsustainable? We don't know. So that whole how these things are dealt with from here on in is unknown. But it was unsustainable, and for my tuppence, I think the thing that's disappointed me most is how ill-disciplined Norwich have been as players. Again at Millwall, but I wasn't there, so I won't talk too much about that. But Stadium of Light this season, first goal we conceded was a stupid Saints tackle, unnecessary in our third. Another one was from a free kick after Cordoba had got sent off for his second for a silly, he'd already been cautioned. Another silly tackle, and I gather that was Duffy and Cordoba doing silly things at Millwall. I think that when you think of the whole Kenny McLean saga, his initial sending off was exacerbated because he had a rant at an official as he went off. Gunny got into trouble for kicking something in the tunnel when he went off at QPR. These are all we can have conspiracy theories about referees, but these are all self-inflicted wounds by an ill-disciplined team, and that's not, that's down to the coach if a squad is behaving like that. And much as I love Argos O'Neill, he posted a like that was critical of the coach. That wouldn't have happened if someone had done that in Paul Lambert's day. Their feet wouldn't have touched the ground. I can remember Richie DeLate, a fullback that played. He disappeared without trace after I think blaming a goal on who would it have been? John Ruddy. That never picked him again. I mean, I think of. Trying to think of some of the others have done. I mean, Farker fell out with Morris Leitner. We had him in our song, but he fell out with Farker and was never picked again. That's overstated, but was out of favour. Solis took a penalty when he wasn't the designated penalty taker. Gone. He can play for England. He played for Greece against England, but he's not going to play for Norwich again because Farker wouldn't put up with it. And yet O'Neill. Posted that thing and he's left out the squad for two weeks and he's back in the squad and they can do the stuff about punishing people for turning up a bit late for training, which is AD there will know that's what you do. There are fines to be paid if you're late for training. In ill discipline on and off the pitch, it goes much deeper than that, and that starts with the coach. So.
No, definitely.
We'll see where we go from there.
Definitely. Do you think, just wanted to answer you, a few questions before we move on. I mean, do you think there would have been, do you think there would have been more patience under Delia Smith? Do you think?
No, I mean, it's interesting. No idea.
Where is the base, Jez? Are you talking about fan base? Or are you talking about board, Jez?
I think so. I think under the board. So with Delia at the helm, do you think she would have had more patience on making this decision?
I don't know. I don't know because I don't know, and I don't know. I don't know how the Russians. I don't know how the Americans are going to be going forward.
Yeah.
Delia, was always upset when the fans were upset. Because she's a fan. Michael would have been apoplectic seeing them lose at Millwall. When Millwall were doing the ole, passing the ball and keeping the ball and we're chasing shadows. Michael Wynne-Jones would have been the saddest person to see that. I've looked into his eyes when things are going wrong and he'd have hated that. She was slow. Delia was not slow, reluctant to sack people, but the times came. I can remember Chris Hughton's the end of that season in the Prem, and she said to me, nothing's going to change if Chris stays. Nothing's going to change. It's not going to get better. So we've got to try and change it. I don't know. I mean, I do think, we go. I think that Johan was on a 3-year contract, wasn't he? I think, and we haven't even had a year. If our reboots and transitions, or whatever you want to call it, you're not even going to get a year. That's a change of emphasis. There comes a tipping point, doesn't there? There comes a tipping point with Dean Smith. It was an away game when the fans had just had enough, and they're chanting it wasn't our fault, because they thought he'd blame the fans, and it becomes unsustainable, because you can't play. Players can't play. If the fans have completely turned, it becomes unsustainable, and the tipping point changes. Delia.
Sorry, AD Cillian Oliver, just to bring you into the mix.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on it today in terms of how decisive I would say the ownership have acted? AD, you commented on it earlier. You said you were surprised. Cillian, Oliver, you haven't mentioned anything. So what's your feeling on it at this point in time? I'll throw that over to Cillian right now.
Well, listening to what Mick said there, I remember speaking to Delia after the Luton game, where obviously there was a lot of anti-Dean Smith sentiment, and she was very clear, as Mick said, she's a fan. And it was really obvious to everybody that his days were numbered at that point. And she definitely was listening to the fans, so she wasn't tone deaf to those sort of things. I do think there is a fairly ruthless streak with Americans in business generally. And we've seen that with some other clubs, Birmingham as an example. So maybe this is the new order. But, again, I think we have, as a club, been a little bit soft in some areas, and maybe it is time to be a bit tougher, because it's a tough world out there.
I'm surprised that how quickly it's taken. He hasn't been given a full season, but I think it's come to the tipping point where it probably is the right decision now. Looking back at it, I think the players aren't playing for him. But what I don't want to happen is I don't want to sort of go into a state like Watford have been, where they've been sacking, appointing managers. Then next appointment has to be right, I think, for us to progress as a club.
Yeah, but Leeds to throw a partridge amongst the pigeons, Jez. Leeds were also like that for a long time. They were sacking their managers, and then they come across someone that will get them up, like in this instance Farker, which is a shame. But does it take a turnstile to get to that point where you find someone that can make it happen? AD, what do you think?
Yeah, I just keep coming back to that idea that clearly they must have been thinking about it, and even if it was a conversation to say, maybe we give them another 3 or 4 months. 2 of those months will be over a closed season, and then what you're left with is, if you come back and after a month, 6 weeks, whatever, into the new season, it's not working, and you sack him October, November time, you're then saying, right, well, we need to give this new manager a chance, so we'll give him till the end of the season. We'll start again the following season, and so you almost end up missing a season out. But I think what we've done is we've given ourselves the best opportunity to kind of go into next season with everything going in our favour. We'll have a new manager. Hopefully he'll have 95% of the squad that he wants, if not all of the squad that he wants. Clean slate for everybody, and just that idea that you go in, you work hard, and you earn your place within that squad. And then come the first game of the season, everything is on the line. Everybody's got everything to play for. I really like that as a position to be in, because I think that just gives us, a bit of emphasis right at the start of the season, as opposed to 5 or 6 weeks into a new season. Right, we'll make the decision then. Actually, we're not seeing any change from the last year that we had. We'll change it now. You end up shooting yourself in the foot, at the beginning of a season, where I think now we've got a real opportunity to kind of come out next season and nail our intent.
I think the recruitment is the issue, isn't it? There's going to be a big recruitment cycle, and if they were thinking of making a change, they have to change the head coach before that recruitment cycle.
And I'm not even talking about promotion next season as being like the ultimate goal. I just think we need to start embedding a little bit of consistency, of just getting ourselves a settled squad, settled performances, an identity, a way in which we play and we look comfortable. We look good, because I haven't seen that a lot at all this season, and I haven't seen all of the games. Granted, the ones I have seen, that frustration where we go a goal up and then don't seem to be willing or able to go and push for a second goal. Whereas what I'd been sold by this manager was this Hoff ball, this so pure, so beautiful attacking football that is going to absolutely annihilate teams. We scored a goal and then sat back. And so,
Sorry,
Yeah.
can I just interject? From my perspective, I think that this club has gotten too preoccupied with this natural order of hitting top six and getting promoted to the Premier League. And I feel that we have almost disregarded how much of a difficult beast the Championship is. That's my view at this point. Arrogance is the wrong word, but almost like a reassurance that we will hit top six. I think we have to understand that we are mired in mid-table Championship. Mediocrity is the wrong word, but I feel that's where we're at. What do you think to the floor?
But I think, Morgan, that we've got, a pretty strong squad. We've bought a lot of decent players. I mean, we haven't got them playing as they need to play, but I mean, who would you replace most of them with? Like, we've done a lot of change, lowered the age of the squad considerably this year through 2 windows, and they're still not performing. But like, if you look at other teams, there are the occasional teams like Burnley and Leeds who've got particularly strong squads, but compared to a lot of the squads that have done better than us, I think we've got better players.
Yeah.
There's been this argument, this idea that, some of the performances, results this season can be put down to a really bad run of injuries, players missing at key times and a lot of our good players not being available. For it to be that regular, at some point you've got to look at what goes on within training and stuff. How and why are we getting so many repetitive injuries? What's going on there? Is that another factor to sort of consider? Because it's not normal to have those amount of injuries so regular throughout a season to key players. Like, what is it that they're doing that is taking its toll on players? We're going to top of the table Burnley a few weeks back, and a chance to really kind of put ourselves against a team that's getting promoted to see where we stand, and we're talking about resting Sargent. We're talking about nursing him through the last few games of the season, so we stick him on the bench and have no attacker. Like, I just can't get my head around that. I can't.
No, I agree.
I think as well, if you go back to the January transfer window in an important time, because at the time we were sort of chasing playoffs, and we've spent £7 million on Eurosec. I'm not going to say it's his fault, but he's played less than 90 minutes of football, and the way that the club put it out, it was a marquee signing that he's going to really propel this season, and that's what a lot of the talk was. And then you see press conference saying that he's going to be in the squad for this weekend, and then on the day, he's pulled out again through injury, or he's not up to the intensity. But I just think it's such a shame that that's happened, and that's the reaction from the fans. It's just poor. I don't know.
No, I agree. I completely agree, Ollie. Mick, before we let you go, what's next then? What's next for Norwich City Football Club?
Sorry,
what's
Jez,
the plan?
what was
I said, what do you think the plan is for Norwich City? What's the next move, would you say?
Well, I mean, I've listened to what everybody said. I mean, it's a fact that in 11 of the last 14 seasons, we've been in the top 26, and that's no mean achievement. Morgan's absolutely right. We did take it for granted that I was always clear that, when we were yo-yoing, that was going to end in one of two ways. Either we were going to be established in the Premier League, which was very unlikely, or we'd be unable to get into the top 6 of the Championship. And I think that's almost the natural order of things. So you're right. We shouldn't worry about that. I'd just like to say I don't know, that's why we're all here talking, because we've no idea what's going to happen, and that's the glory of football. But I'd just like to sort of reflect that this is the first one of these I've done since Delia left, and how relieved her friends are that nobody's blaming her for what's going on at the moment, and that's how she feels. What was the game when we were 2-0 up and lost 3-2? Was that
Chef Wednesday?
Anyway,
Yes, Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah.
Yes, Chef Wednesday, and she was with someone. Someone was her guest at that match, and when that ended, she said, sometimes these things happen in football, but now it's not my fault. Those who care about her, it's been, we've just celebrated 16 years of being unbeaten by 5,884 days. It was the other day since we last lost to Ipswich, and this mad perpetual game of football continues, and we're doing it without Delia and Michael at the helm. But I think it's been a fantastic 25 years, and that may be a minority report, but I feel I don't have so much angst about Norwich now, because it used to. The last few years, it's been doing my head in reading people have been saying about Delia and Michael every time we lost, and now it's not bearable when they play like they did at Millwall. But I don't feel that a friend of mine is getting a kicking. That'd be my last thought for the night, really. That whatever happens next, it's not Delia's fault.
I'm glad you said that, because now me and Jez have taken on that burden, haven't we, Jez? Thanks for that. And everyone involved in, you know what? Thank you to AD, Cillian, and Ollie, who've been absolute stalwarts for Beyond the Barclay so far. And this has been one of the most roller coaster rides of a season to be involved in, but equally involved in this podcast. So
thank you, Morgan,
all.
as well. Really,
And
really do
Mick,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for coming on.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yes, thank you for getting us involved, but you could have picked a better season.
Yeah, no, definitely. Mick, I hope you have a wonderful summer, and I hope we can meet up in the new season. Look forward to
Amazing. Thank you.
See you
seeing you
soon.
again.
See you soon.
Thanks. All the best. Bye bye.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye bye. That was a quick move, that, Cillian. Hello. How are you?
How are we doing, guys? All right.
We can't actually hear you, Mark.
Can you not?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Mark, if you'd just like to introduce yourself to the guys. I could see you already advertising your podcast on your shirt, so perhaps talk about that a little bit as well. We're a little bit behind the times with our t-shirts. We need some of those. Yeah, introduce yourself, please, mate.
Yeah, I couldn't work out should I wear my shirt or should I wear my Norwich shirt. So I've been recording tonight already. So yeah,
fair enough.
Just stuck with it. But yeah, hi, I'm Mark. I host the Big Fellas podcast. We're a podcast here to support men's weight loss. Yeah, we talk to guys that have lost weight and to share their stories. We talk to influencers, fitness experts, and things like that. So yeah, I think I was an early guest on Beyond the Barclay, and thank you, Jez, for having me back.
No, absolutely fine. It's an absolute pleasure, and I wish it was in better circumstances, Mark. But perhaps if you'd just like to start with your sort of thoughts about what the news today, what your early thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things when sort of Norwich sack a manager. You always kind of like know where you are, if you remember where you are and everything, because it doesn't happen that regularly. But yeah, I was sat in the car park of a supermarket, and my first thought was relief more than anything else. I think I did want to believe in the project, and I did get behind it, but the last 10 games have been atrocious, and there's no escaping that. The form has been awful, and I think the only win we got in the last 10 games, we kind of nicked it in the last minute with the last kick of the game. We've not seen a dominant performance in weeks. There's been issues, not just like with performances, but injuries, and I think the manager has to be accountable for that as well. I just feel like with so many injuries that have just happened across the season, has there just been something going on in training that's affecting the players in such a way? So it's never good to see a manager go. I liked what he set out to do, and I was fully behind it. But as the season went on, it just got to a point where you're thinking it can't carry on like this.
I know what you mean. I was just watching the pink and blow up and everything blow up, but at the same time, it was in the post. It was a long time in the post, I think. For me, Oxford United, and that's where I started to go. I bowed, and I was like, I don't know, doesn't feel right to me. There's no longevity. So yeah, I get it. It's a bit weird, isn't it? After 10 months, it's not usually 10 months for us. It's usually like 18 plus, which is good. Is it good? is it good in a way that we've acted so decisively? I don't know, Flor. What do you think?
I don't know. I'll take that one then. I think it's twofold. I think it's Ben Napper's man, isn't it? He's appointed him, and I think because it's been a failure. Is that his fault? No. I think what he's done is he's acted quickly, probably because he's had to act quickly because his bosses have told him to. But that's not his fault. I think I'm purely from a personal point of view. I've appointed people who I think they're going to be brilliant. They're going to sell lots of things for me. But it's not turned around like that. Things happen in life, don't they? Where it hasn't worked out for Thorup. That's not Napper's fault. He's been put into his job to go and find the replacement now, and he'll learn from his mistakes of appointing Thorup. In my opinion, is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I praise the time, and I think it's exactly the right thing to do at exactly the right time, and for the reasons that I've sort of spoke about already. What I can't forget, and again, it's probably it was going to end one of two ways, and it's ended obviously with him leaving the football club. But go back to end of January, beginning of February, I can't really remember, but I just remember we were a couple of points outside the playoffs, and we were staring down 10 games. I could see the 10 games, and you were looking at the 10 games. I think it was a couple of home games. I think Derby was one of them. Preston was the other one. And that was the start of 10 games where you really felt each game you could pick something up from, even the away games. And you're looking there and you're thinking, God, there's about 20, 24 points to be picked up here. No problem. And it just didn't fall that way at all. I gave up counting after about 8 games how many points out of that 10 we actually got, but I bet it weren't many more than 10. And that was, for me, that was a lost opportunity then, because I think if we'd have picked up those points and we'd have been comfortably in the playoffs, we wouldn't be here talking tonight. We'd be planning, how we can overcome Sheffield United or whoever it would be that we'd be facing in the playoffs. It went completely the other way. And when I say completely, I mean absolutely completely. There was no middle ground here. Like, we just absolutely capitulated completely without, there was no, it was incredible.
Eddie, you've played in a lot of teams. Like, is that down to the manager or is that the players?
I'm not close enough at the moment to kind of comment. I mean, I have been around a football club, which I won't comment too much about. But essentially, the manager has lost the dressing rooms and the players. I'm not saying they won't perform for him, but they're just, they're not fully committed as perhaps they would be. And, I've seen that sort of play out once, and the manager didn't last very long. And it's got the similar sort of feeling. I'm not saying that that's what's happened. Players might come out and be full of praise for the manager, and he's always conducted himself well in terms of interviews. He's answered all questions. So, by no means am I suggesting anything like that, but it has happened, and when the dressing room is gone, that's it. There is very little you can do. And again, what won't be made public is, if this is a decision that's been made purely off of the back of the Millwall result, whether this is something that conversation's been had with some senior players for a few days to kind of get their view of how things are going. Like, we will never know that. That's stuff that happens as well. They'll feel out the senior players and get a kind of view from them as to how things are and stuff. Whether that is common practice nowadays, I'm not so sure. It's 20 odd years ago since I played. But yeah, the bottom line is that recent results have been not just not good enough, but absolutely horrific. We're bottom of the form table, and comfortably bottom.
Yeah.
So, like I say, we've now got a chance to really look at things over the summer.
I think,
and not waste time.
AD, I think playing devil's advocate, because obviously I'm not a professional footballer, never have been, but just reading some things or reading body language on the pitch the last few games, there appears to be some kind of from senior players, like I've tried and I can't do any more than I have. And I think that maybe is played into where Hoff has found him now. That's my perspective. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it's just from what I could tell. Last game I saw was Pompey versus Norwich, and I was astounded at the lack of like genuine passion. I hadn't seen that for a long time. Cillian, Ollie, Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just been brewing, like I've said, but I think we're in an exciting time now where there's been a few names thrown out. Obviously, Russell Martin's been probably, I've seen that many times today, and probably would make sense in a lot of people's minds because he's been a Norwich legend, etc. But I think personally, I think we need a more experienced manager, probably slightly defensive as well. I think you've got Birmingham and Wrexham coming up both next season from League One, probably. There's going to be a lot of money thrown about in the Championship next season. We need to just solidify as a club, in my opinion.
Agreed. I think that's an amazing point. And I said to Jez, sorry to interject to anyone, but like I feel like we need a couple of League One players with something to prove to to play into the squad that know the leagues and can battle out. I'm a little bit concerned of our lack of industry and experience. I don't know about Cillian, Mark. What do you feel?
Yeah, we definitely need something with a bit more grit in the team, and I guess that's something we just never really saw from Hoff. I don't think we didn't really see that battled, grind out a 1-0 and just get the job done. We never saw enough of that. And credit to Hoff, when it worked, there was those games where the goals flowed and we looked something special. But we've not seen that since Christmas. Some of the early games, it did look right, and there was something coming. But really, we need a manager that's going to adapt to the style, adapt to the games. Like, we can't play free-flowing football all the time. We're going to have games where our system gets found out, so to speak, and we're going to need a manager that's okay to adjust the setup and try something a little bit different. Maybe we do have to sort of hit it a bit long sometimes, and it's not what we want to do, but if we're not getting what we need from that game, then we're going to have to make adjustments.
Yeah, but for example, like, and we did adjust, and there's a lot of criticism for the adjustment against West Brom, which we did go on and win that game. And I've heard a lot of commentary about like chasing results as the downfall of a lot of coaches. But he did change it. We did get a result, but wasn't the type of football the fans wanted either. So it's hard to know.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, look, Mark, just sort of rewinding a little bit. What do you think worked well for Thorup early on? What would you say was his? Because I think I don't know about anyone else, but I think earlier on in the season there was some really standout results, particularly at home. When I'm talking about Hull, I'm talking about Watford at the time were up there fighting with us, and we beat them 4-0, didn't we? Plymouth, I know at the time they were the whipping boys, 6-1. We beat them. So, Mark, why do you think it worked well for Thorup early on?
I think overall there was probably a buy-in from the squad as it started out, and it was early doors and everyone was fresh. Players were keen to impress. The fans bought into it and understood that it was going to be a transition season. But
yeah,
I think from the fans' perspective, if we could see what was trying to be achieved, then the fans would buy into it. And I think to some extent, I've only really started hearing real dissenting voices about Thorup in the last couple of weeks. Even having these shoddy results for the last 10 games, the actual Thorup out sentiment was only really starting to sort of get louder in the last couple of weeks, mostly from the last two results. I actually spoke to my stepson about this earlier over dinner, and he's actually quite disappointed. He was still behind him. He thought he was going to turn it round, and it was just a case of let's see this season out, and let's regroup and go again next season.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Mark. And that was, for me, it was an option, but it's, as we discussed earlier on, I just think it's just become a little bit untenable. And I mean, that was my next question to you, really. When did you think it did start to unravel? And, what was the catalyst to that, I guess?
I think it probably was the Portsmouth game for me. I can accept we're on a bit of poor form, and that's going to happen throughout the season, especially in a season of transition. A team like Portsmouth that haven't won away or barely won away all season, coming to Carrow Road, we've got Science and Sargent, the two of the league's top scorers in that side. We're looking strong in attack. That's not acceptable. Granted, Portsmouth are scrapping and fighting, and they needed the win, but again, you've barely won away all season, and you come to Carrow Road and pull our pants down. That's embarrassing.
Can I say something? I think
Yeah.
there's this argument that there's a bunch of no disrespect to bottom end championship sides that are fighting for something. Well, equally, we should be fighting for our fan base to get behind the project that we're trying to promote. And I think for me, since Oxford United, that was when I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm into this, because this is going nowhere. Like it's just flat feeling every game, And sorry, Cillian, if you try and push towards like getting the fan base on side, which sell out that ground every week to serve up the stuff that we've seen, I'm not sure really I can buy into it. Anyway, Cillian.
Yeah, I think the rot set in a couple of the away games. Like if you look at Bristol, Plymouth, Burnley, were all really poor performances by the team. Now Hoff has to take the responsibility for that. But like we gave away 2 early goals against Bristol, and there was no fight in the team. We got 1 back. We just didn't seem to be able to get that second goal. And it's amazing we've such a strike force and the amount of goals, but then we seem to go on these droughts. Obviously, we've got a glass-like defence, but there's something wrong somewhere where there's times when that strike team just can't seem to put the ball in the net. And we shouldn't have lost to Plymouth or Bristol as examples. And the way we set up against Burnley in the first half was definitely down to the coach. That was poor. So I know for people who only get to Carrow Road, it's obviously maybe a bit more recent, but I think there's been a lot of really poor away performances this season.
Just on that Burnley one, obviously team sheet goes out, fans see it and stuff like that, and so we all have our opinions, and we look at it and we just can't understand it. Imagine you're a player in that team, somebody like, I don't know, who's Norwich's most experienced player at the moment? Kenny McLean. Let's say, got promotions and stuff like that. He's looking at what the manager's just announced, and he's got to bite his tongue and agree with it and get on with it. Do you know what I mean? And I just think it's decisions like that get the players within that dressing room look at it a little bit different. Does this guy really know what he's doing? And it's just I think that's where it started for me.
Yeah, well, they do like no recognised striker and Sarge on the bench, but like we'd 5 at the back plus 2 holding midfielders.
Yeah. We played 5-5.
Yeah, I mean it was a mad.
I've never ever known that, but like as a player in that system, being asked to play that, you've got to support the manager. It's it's his right to pick the team. You can't question or query it. Hold on a minute. Where are our goals coming from? Did they buy into it? Did they go, oh yeah, I never thought of it like that. That's a good idea. Let's set up like that. Because they might say it out loud, but I bet they're not thinking it.
No, definitely.
I mean, that's from your perspective, AD, as a former pros. Truly, that's like a different insight. Excellent.
No, definitely. Then, Mark, moving forward to we've obviously got Jack Wilshere now. Again, initial thoughts on his interim appointment, and do you think he's the man to take us forward on a more long-term basis?
It's an interesting one, and I've been chatting to a couple of Arsenal fans today, and they all the Arsenal fans I spoke to kind of had the feeling that we got Jack in as a coach to be the natural successor. Now, maybe this has come a bit sooner than what we all first thought, and it's probably a bit sooner than Jack first thought, but I have got a feeling that Jack was brought in with a longer view that he could potentially take on the reins. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does get the gig. And certainly it's a name, it's a personality that is well known on the football circuit. So I think that would certainly have its merits in potentially attracting players to the club. But this is the Championship, this is gritty, hard football, and a manager with no experience, having just sacked a manager with very little experience, is that the right way to go?
This is what I've said, like the last few days. Norwich right now is in a weird place that it needs to respect the leagues that it's in. we can't keep going on where we're guaranteed playoff places. We need to be a Premier League side. It's like, no, we're in the middle of a shit show. This family pod, we're in the middle of a championship. We need to really think about where we're going in terms of like grinding this out. And right now, like, is Jack Wilshere the kind of person that can lead the charge? It's all well and good having this ideological like mindset that will be Arsenal 2.0 in the championship. Like, we just lost to Pompey. I don't know if, if maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll like hold my hand, eat my hat. But I think we just need someone with some more ballast, some more experience. And I don't know who that is. I'm not professing to do that. It's not my job. Jess, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to chuck it to Ollie and just get his opinion on Wilshere as a younger fan. Obviously, you would have seen him play for Arsenal and stuff. What are your thoughts on his appointment?
Yeah, I think Mark makes a good point bringing up like Wilshere, because you see like it will attract players, for example, because if you look under Lampard and the way he's taken Coventry from 17th to the top 6, I think players do want to play under them type of characters because they've grown up sort of admiring them as players, if you get what I mean. However, going on to that, I think we do need experience in this league. I think we need someone that's a bit more defensively minded, because he would conceded 20 goals from, I think, set pieces this season, which is just ridiculous. But then going back to it again, we're the second top goal scorers in this division, and equally we've conceded a relegation amount of goals. So there's no consistency between the attack and the defence, and I think that definitely needs sorting out.
Yeah, no, it's a fair comment. Mark, just before we let you go, is there? I mean, I guess you'd love to plug your podcast. You got the t-shirt. Let's hear about it once again. Yeah, for me, it's brilliant. If it can help anyone, then I think it's a great thing. So yeah, once again, Mark, if you can just promote that for us.
Yeah, thanks, Jez. So I host the Big Fellas podcast. We're a men's weight loss podcast. Last year, I lost 4.5 stone in weight, along with my co-host Darren, who lost about 6 stone. And we wanted to just create a space to support men's weight loss, because we just do feel that sort of weight loss resources is very much pitched to women. There's not really much support for blokes or anything that's really directed at guys. And so that's was kind of like the impetus to sort of what we started this for. But yeah, we interview nutritionists, fitness experts, influencers, anyone that's got a connection to fitness and weight loss. We've had an ex-Norwich player on the show in Luke Chadwick, which was quite good. And on top of that, we share our own experiences about weight loss, and we'll talk about sort of things that are going on. And then we also talk to guys that have lost significant weight to sort of help and inspire others. So
Thank you.
It's a project I'm really passionate about, and thanks for letting me plug it.
No, not at all. And hopefully we can meet up again next season. Unless anyone else has got any questions for Mark, I think we'll be able to let him go back into the wild of Peterborough.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. See you later, guys. Take care. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. So, as Mark frantically works out how to end the call, let's summarise. Still, he's gone. So let's summarise before we finish. So I mean that I think it'd be good just to sort of go around the room and find out who each person thinks would be a good appointment. I'm going to let Ollie go first on this one.
I still haven't got a name to my mind. I think I love the idea of Russell Martin, but I don't think the football would probably suit. Well, I mean, he's been promoted through the playoffs, so that's the thing. At the moment, I'll just say Russell Martin just because he's out there, but I think I wouldn't mind like a Gary O'Neill or a Cooper type appointment, maybe a Dyche in there as well, just for stability. But will they drop down to Norwich is a question I don't know. But I also want to bring up as well that some positives that's happened this season. I think Thorup's gave a lot of opportunities to younger players. So we've seen sort of Callum Fisher's breakthrough season, which is something that really got the fans on board at the start of the season. Same with Forsyth before he was injured as well. And obviously Lucien Mahobo. So I think there has been some positives this season. yeah, I think just someone's more experienced, I'd say. So probably not Russell Martin, but something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go a bit left field and go for Michael O'Neill,
Okay.
the Northern Ireland manager. I think he's really demonstrated what he can do with young players. And given we've now got a fairly young squad, I think he might be an interesting appointment. Yeah, he's the current manager. He's gone back for a second stint.
Yeah, that's right. Because they had someone in between. I can't remember who it was. It was a. So I was just removing a cushion from my backside because it was starting to dig into me.
He's also given Rory McConville his chance, so I think he's being decent.
Well, I'm about to embark on a mission of stealthily planting some seeds in some Leeds supporters' head that actually Daniel Farker can't cut it in the Premier League, and just sort of plant those seeds of doubt. So sometime over the summer break, those in charge of Leeds are forced to make a decision where they bring somebody in with more Premier League experience, and then a free Daniel Farker would be welcomed back at Carrow with open arms from me. So that would be my long shot plan. Other than that, probably it's going to be somebody that we've not talked about, somebody that we've not mentioned, most likely. I hope it's a manager that's currently in employment and we've had to persuade him or pay him to leave a job that he's currently doing successfully, rather than picking up somebody that nobody else wants to employ for whatever reason.
You're the man with the experience of that.
Say that again?
You're the man with the experience of knowing about that.
It's really difficult to say whether a group of players and a manager is good.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a really, really great manager. I mean, there was no guarantee Daniel Farker that it would have worked out at Interim, and it very nearly didn't last season. But, you know, just as it worked so brilliantly for him at Norwich, there's no guarantee that with another set of players. And I guess it's the same with, you know. I'm not saying he's a bad manager. I'm not saying he can't do a good job somewhere else. He just wasn't a fit for us. And so whoever we bring in, I hope, is a fit for the players that we've got, or is able to bring in the players that fit him.
Yeah, agreed. Morgan,
Yes.
your pick, please, for Norwich City next manager permanent.
There was that about 6 to 8 months ago. There was that rumor that Arteta's assistant coach would come in. So maybe that's still on the cards with Uncle Mark digging deep. But either way, despite everything we've said, I think Uncle Mark is going to have to dig deep to get whoever. I think I remember saying to someone on the Pinkin today that whoever comes in, we're going to have to make sure that they have a level of experience that I think is going to cost us money. Because this season has been an eye-opener for both Mark and Mark's like on my first name terms. Hope you don't listen to this, Mark. And Tanasio and the club to realise that you can't just have an experience and hope in a charm that it's going to work out. I know that's a bit of a vague way of me saying I have no idea, but I'm sure you understand it's pretty tough. Cooper, but
I think also if you spend the right amount of money, and that could be a lot, on a manager that can come in and is able to get the best out of 3 or 4 players that we've got currently that are just kind of drifting on by, that's as good as 3 or 4 new signings.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But you don't have to then fork out money for.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, my pick, Steve Cooper, 2 promotions on his CV. He won. What did he win with England? Under 21s or under 19s? Well, a couple of Euros potentially. So he's won a major tournament, albeit at youth level. What Adie's just said, so brings on the youth players, players like Antti Sunak, Ratu, Forsen. Just trying to think of some others. So players that are on that periphery that aren't quite there yet. But having a manager that has had that experience of bringing on those youth players. And I just think it'd be a really good fit. Morgan, we talked about it earlier, didn't we? Your mate's a Forest fan and it still speaks very highly of the work that Cooper did at that club, albeit Santos' take to the next level. Santos, sorry.
Yeah, but at the same time, like Cooper doesn't play the kind of football that Napa wants. But then, is football changing? So it's a deeper conversation for another time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it is, and I think as well as, you know, Napper's, yes, it's his philosophy and how he wants to play, but, you know, he's not the coach, is he? He's someone that will, yes, he'll have a vision of the players that he wants to get in and that can play those roles, but I don't think our players will work well in a 4-3-3 this season. I don't think it's good having Strati shoved out to the left or the right, or Shinak. When they come into the centre, you see how so I think we need to find a manager that's prepared to drop the 4-3-3. And go back to, you know, I think you, again, Morgan, I don't want to take words out of your mouth, back to basics, back to the way that we know we can play in the Championship and the formation that we can play in the Championship and attack it again next season. I think we've reached the natural conclusion, gentlemen. I just wanted to say thank you so much to all of you for coming on and echo what Morgan said earlier. Thank you for all your hard work. And I think, you know, our 5 listeners that we have beyond the Barclay are very, 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 very pleased with your efforts. No, look, for me, I've always said it's a very selfish thing for me why I do this is to talk to Norwich fans. And, you know, I'm really pleased with the team we built here. So please, you know, thank you so much. And it never goes unnoticed what you guys do for us. So they keep it going and thank you.
Thank you, Jez. We try.
Thank you, Jez.
And enjoy the rest of your weeks. And I'll speak to you all again next Tuesday when we do our end of season review.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Barclay. Thanks so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. You can also catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions, stories, or topics you'd like us to cover, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, on the ball, City.